All right. This morning's opening lesson is based upon the 44th passage of the meditation classic, The Unwaning Victory Banner, composed oh so many centuries ago by Prahevajara. Together let us relaxingly recite. Pristine awareness, wonderful and sorry, there's an apostrophe here. Let's see if I can't highlight that. Pristine awarenesses, wonderful and extraordinary manifestations, abide like space beyond activities. Out of non-conceptual ignorance, it arises naturally and spontaneously. So, for this to make sense, we got to start with brass tacks. What is meant by pristine awareness? To answer that, I'm going to access a set of visual aids. Now, both this text and the set of visual aids are available for free download. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks. What does that suckiness look like? Well, it looks like most of us, including myself, being raised, being conditioned to being members of Yang's religious patriarchy, being conditioned to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel, which is the opposite of Yin's spiritual matriarchy, which is flexible, loving, rational, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. Therefore, it should come as little surprise that the majority of meditation teachers implore their students to actively focus and actively analyze. Now, the medial and dorsolateral regions of our prefrontal cortex evolved to be used intermittently, sparingly. What happens when they're overused? Well, we exhaust the front of our brain, causing us to present with symptoms of depression, as well as trigger our amygdala, the seat of both anxiety and aggression. Fortunately, neither the amygdala nor the prefrontal cortex constitute the entirety of our central nervous system. Consider, if you will, our spinal cord, both the middle bit as well as the end bits. The fancy word for our spinal cord is our autonomic nervous system. Why did the ancients refer to it as our Buddha nature? I'll show you. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we automatically access the sympathetic aspect of our autonomic nervous system, which has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way, vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly, which is the opposite of the rigidity of focus. We have evolved to notice all manner of phenomena, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque, which includes the full spectrum of human perceptions, emotions, intentions, cognitions, recollections, and imaginings. The easiest way to do this is to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this as we feel our diaphragm pull in and down during our inhalation. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access the end bits of our spinal cord known as the parasympathetic aspect of our autonomic nervous system. This bad boy has evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, and even less defining. Wherever there are human civilizations, whatever language is used, there will always be figures of speech. It's how we're wired. We are wired, we have evolved to think symbolically. Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. What's a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could look tantalizing to the eye, feels not graspable to the hand. The most efficient way for us to practice this meditation is for us to silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease as we feel our diaphragm relax and reset as we exhale. Having reviewed the basics, let us return to this morning's opening lesson. So awareness refers to mindfulness, to noticing mind's antics as we inhale. Pristine is a metaphor referring to our experience as we relax into our exhalation. For many millennia, the mistakes of patriarchy's view, practices of concentration and contemplation have confused our zeitgeist into thinking that if we notice anything other than the here or the now or our breath or our visualization, then that's terrible. But what the author is reminding us is no. Whatever we see, hear, feel, taste, smell, emote, intend, reason, recall, or imagine is wonderful. What makes it wonderful? Because we can notice it as we breathe in, and we can release it as we breathe out. It's always safe to do that, even if what we feel is fleeting rage. Because let's go back to the opening page, not the opening page, the visual aids. A dynamic fringe benefit of cooperating with our autonomic nervous system is that, well, I'll put it to you a different way. It was said by the late Tulku Thondup that the highest love is the spontaneous and uncontrived fringe benefits of mindfulness and meditation. The more we practice mindfulness and meditation, the more it calms the anxiety and aggression of our amygdala, the more it calms us, gives us peace and contentment, and the more it gently stimulates our anterior cingulate gyrus, which functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy, that which transforms the raw material of aversion and avarice into love and compassion. Therefore, it's safe to notice whatever comes up, even if what comes up is rage. Because by noticing and relaxing, not only is it impossible to act on the rage, but that will just serve to strengthen our empathy. So whatever we notice are like space. We can note the amount of things, that possibilities that we can notice are vast. This pristine awareness that is transformative and pleasurable is beyond activities. We don't have to coerce our body to notice and relax. We're already wired to do it. It's not our job to make those things happen. It's our job to cooperate with those natural processes and to cooperate in a distinctly vulnerable, passive, visceral, random, and fleeting manner. Additionally, when we read let's take a moment to this. When we review the Buddha's Eightfold Path, we see 50% of it pertains to loving kindness. The rest pertains to the impermanence and emptiness and the effortless effort, all of which flow from our practice of mindfulness and meditation. There is no mention of karma. We can view the practice of Buddhism in two stages: proto-Buddhism and institutional Buddhism. In proto-Buddhism, we still saw people striving to be flexible, loving, rational, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. In institutional Buddhism, we see that the lunatics have taken over the asylum. In institutional Buddhism, we see rigidity, fear, superstition, controlling tendencies, elitism, the traits of being cryptic, competitive, and cruel actually being lauded. These are the people who who borrowed the Hindu concept of karma and tried to use fear to modulate behavior. On the Buddhist path, we use love to modulate behavior. In institutional Buddhism, we use fear. Fear of karmic retribution, fear of an inauspicious rebirth. Love is the path of peace. Fear will never end in peace. So not only is our practice of pristine awareness beyond any type of efforts to coerce our body into an artificial state, it's also beyond karmic retribution. As long as we're still alive, as long as we still have a central nervous system, we are still capable of practicing pristine awareness. Out of non-conceptual ignorance, it arises naturally and spontaneously. So non-conceptual here is not an inference to repressing thoughts. It's simply saying, guys, we don't need blind faith to practice pristine awareness. All we got to do is cooperate with our own body. We don't need to do intellectual gymnastics to practice pristine awareness. All we got to do is cooperate with Our autonomic nervous system spontaneously, habitually, easily, and let's try this again. Vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. Many times things happen that we find disturbing. That's natural. And we often try to look for causes so that we can sidestep those unfortunate circumstances. Makes perfect sense. Sometimes those causes are not obvious. And so we practice the most human of behaviors, making shit up. And that can get us in a lot of trouble. Blaming the deformed child or the old widow woman for a failed crop and therefore sacrificing them on an altar or burning them alive is not going to be the panacea our muddle-headed ancestors thought it was. And there is tremendous freedom and courage in simply saying, I don't always know the answer to everything all the time. And in institutional Buddhism, that's frowned upon. But in proto-Buddhism, that's par for the course. There is always going to be stuff outside our sphere of comprehension as a species, no less as an individual. And yet, despite the fact that you and I and everybody else are less than omniscient, we are still wired to practice the pristine awareness of noticing and relaxing and harmony with our respiration. This pristine awareness arises naturally and spontaneously. We don't have to force it. Not at all, not even a little bit. That is exactly why our job, our task when sitting in meditation is to passively cooperate with the functions of our autonomic nervous system. And once again, the easiest way to do that is to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this as we feel our diaphragm pull in and down during our inhalation, and to silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease as we feel our diaphragm relax and reset as we exhale. Having completed our opening lesson, we can now shift gears. It is Obi-Wan Kenobi Wednesday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is the Dzogchen Semde Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I have harnessed my autistic special interests as well as my ADHD hyperfocus to spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I can become your personal, nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. For the remainder of this morning's live stream, let's practice mindfulness and meditation. The most efficient way for us to keep track of our first collection of 144 inhalations is for us to rest the great knuckle, the first knuckle at the base of our right index finger, upon the tip of our left index finger, palms up in our lap. We could use the tip of our right thumb to count the 3 sets of creases found on each of the 4 fingers of our right hand, and thus keep track of our next 12 inhalations. Upon the 3 sets of creases found upon each of the 4 fingers of our left hand, we could count 12 sets of 12 inhalations each. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist or Taoist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions about every 5 to 10 minutes. Remember, the most efficient way to practice the mindfulness, which is simply noticing the antics of mind, is to silently and mentally recite the demonstrative pronoun this during each inhalation. The most efficient way to practice the meditation, which is merely relaxing into mind's ultimate non-graspable nature, is to silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb ease during each exhalation. Our job is not to actively try to notice and actively try to relax. Our job is just to cooperate with the natural functions of our autonomic nervous system, vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist or Taoist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions about every 5 or 8 minutes or so. The most efficient way to begin keeping track of our second collection of 144 inhalations is to rest the second knuckle of our right index finger upon the tip of our left index finger, palms up in our lap. Just as Obi-Wan Kenobi said to Luke Skywalker aboard the Millennium Falcon, you have taken your first step into a much larger world. So do I tell you that if you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. And, oopsie. And if you are as geeky as me, oopsie, I skipped something. I feel terribly silly about that. In about 11 hours or so, 11 and a quarter hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's dusk meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.